Hey there, friends, fans, and collectors. We got a new Mandalorian episode to talk about, and it's Guns for Hire. Let's get going.
Commence primary ignition.
We're going to be doing an in-depth review of this episode, so there are spoilers ahead. This episode felt true Mandalorian, so much Mando lore, and really advanced the story forward in some amazing ways. There were a good amount of Easter eggs this episode, mostly gearing back towards the Clone Wars, the animated series, both with characters as well as droids and other gear and tech. There were a good amount of Easter eggs this episode, mostly gearing back towards the Clone Wars, the animated series, both with characters as well as droids and other gear and tech. We open up on a Corran vessel traveling through space. It is hailed by an Imperial light cruiser, which ends up being the mercenary Mandalorian fleet, which is in this Imperial cruiser that was captured in Season 2. And they are in pursuit of a Mon Cal on this Corran ship. Now this is a great dive into Star Wars history because even pre-Clone Wars, the planet of Mon Calamari had a pretty intense civil war that pitted the Corran people against the Mon Cal people. And this was egged on also by Separatists and the Clone Wars. It really lasted through the entirety of the Clone Wars into most of the Empire takeover as well. Bo-Katan is tasked with finding other Mandalorians in the galaxy, and it seems that Din Djarin has opted to travel on this journey with her and seek out other Mandos as well. Now the first spot she is going to is her old Mandalorian crew, the Mercs who had the fleet that she gathered. So these two venture off to find these other Mandalorians and convince them to join in the fight to retake Mandalore once again. Their travels take them to Plazir-15, which is this amazingly beautiful domed city. It has been around since long ago. It seems relatively untouched from the Clone Wars, which is impressive. And it has a beautiful agricultural system and a monarchy still set in place. When they arrive on Plazir-15, they notice that there's a lot of Imperial mechanics, Imperial supplies and things moving around, and they're whisked away to go speak with the Queen and her partner, who is an ex-Imperial who is through the amnesty program running things here on Plazir-15. Now they advertise this is an extreme democracy, a good example of democracy, and this is another interesting kind of pattern that I'm seeing with this New Republic stuff and with Disney Plus shows and with this envision of the galaxy right now in the Star Wars timeline, and that is that democracy is kind of a joke. So they always have these, pompous democracy, this is this, and we're shown the real true underbelly of it and how it doesn't really work. It's an interesting theme, it's very cynical. It's interesting that it's the broadcasted image of the New Republic as well. This episode was packed full of great cameos, but I have to say one of the best ones was Jack Black and Lizzo as the queen, the Dutchess queen of this Plazir-15, and her husband, Captain Bombardier, who, as I said, was an ex-Imperial amnesty officer. Now, we can see with the amazing costuming, and then we get this fabulous reveal where they enter and there's this opulent party where they're having this huge grand ballroom dinner, and Lizzo and Jack Black are behind the table, and aside from the setting and the scenes and everything being very unique, very Star Wars, very beautiful, we got tons of different unique aliens that we've seen before in the galaxy, but great to see in live action. The really interesting takeaway was that Lizzo was regal, so she was part of a monarchy here. She was a duchess, and there were a lot of similarities between the culture of this planet and Mandalore. And so not only were there the domed cities like Mandalore had, but their duchess, Lizzo, also wore her regal gown. She had this hollow kind of backing to it that was very similar to Duchess Satine, which is Bo-Katan's sister. These two leaders tasked the Mandalorians with their quest for this episode, which is to hunt down and track malfunctioning droids that are running amok in this city and on this planet. Now, this planet has re-requisitioned Imperial assets and Separatist assets, even further back there in history, and it really boasts this democratic utopia where nobody works, droids do all the work, everybody just participates in democracy, which is silly and sounds ridiculous, but Anyway, all the droids do the work for them, and so droids are a huge population on this planet. And some of the droids were malfunctioning, and the Mandos have to go hunt down and track down and find out what this could be. We get a bunch of great Easter eggs through this episode, with the equipment scene as well. And we have droids ranging from all generations of Star Wars, going all the way back to even some of the Old Republic models I saw clanking around, but tons of Separatist B1 droids, live action B2s. We had some great scenes here. Their journey takes them to the head of security, who is another fabulous cameo, Christopher Lloyd, Doc Brown himself, in full Star Wars gear, being the head technician. The easiest solution would be to shut off all the droids if there's a problem, but society will literally collapse without the droids. It is dependent on them entirely. They head down to the lower levels to talk to the Ugnaughts. We had some really cool interactions here. Some examples that Din is, well-traveled throughout the galaxy. He knows of Ugnaught ways. He's able to talk to these Ugnaughts respectfully because of how he dealt with Kuil. At their first location to look for malfunctioning droids, we see a great live-action B1 battle droid with his Roger Roger and squeaky voice. It's awesome to see these guys. I really did like these guys a lot in the Clone Wars, and we see him kind of guiding around his larger B2 brethren. And so the B2s are kind of like wandering, carrying heavy equipment, and Din starts kicking them to try and agitate them to see if any of them will malfunction. One of them does, and we get this awesomely cool chase scene. Man, this thing moves fast. It's a really great chase scene of it running through. It really looked like one of these like Boston Dynamics droids. It was moving very agilely, very creepily. We get an amazing chase scene where eventually Din has to jump through a window to take this thing down. We all know in the Star Wars galaxy, droids are second-class citizens, and they're accepted in bars in certain places like that. So it's only right and funny that they would find their own places to socialize in their own bars. So they get a clue that this droid bar might be a location they need to check out. So they go to it. The protocol droid working the bar gives this really impactful, the protocol droid working the bar gives this really impactful line about how, humans don't live for that long, we don't ask for that much, but organics still created them, so why not help? It's very oh, whoa. But all the droids start cheering, and they help the Mandalorians find the problem. They find that there is nanobots created, this is another great name drop, created by the Techno Union that are actually causing these droid malfunctions that are in this fluid lubricant. It's a great bit of sleuthing and detective work in the Star Wars realm. But the Techno Union was an old separatist leader in the Clone Wars. And they obviously had, based on their name, they had amazing technological advancements throughout the Star Wars galaxy that are still seen today. And a lot of the things that they had were crazy advanced weapons of war, i.e. these nanobots that are designed to make droids malfunction and reprogram themselves. And we learn that the chain code attached to these droids is Christopher Lloyd himself. So a great cameo. They stuck to some great Law and Order rules where if you see a cameo, it's probably going to be the bad guy. I love that they followed through with this. And we get a great standoff where Christopher Lloyd reveals that, he's been a separatist since the whole Clone Wars, and even before the Old Republic, he's been a survivor since then. And he threatens to push the button that he had said was a deprogramming button, but he reveals now to be a button to activate the war features for all of the battle droids on the planet. Great little standoff. He starts monologuing in a great way about how Count Dooku was a visionary, and in that moment, Bo zaps him with her taser gauntlet, and he goes down. We got some great legacy and more backstory to the Star Wars universe than we've seen in a while in this episode. Now, we all remember that Mandalorian culture dictates that only the strong will rule, so as soon as she shows up, Bo-Katan challenges Axe to a fight, to a duel for the leadership of these Mandalorians. We get a great fight. I love how she immediately follows this culture rule too, which is, pretty ingrained in the Mandalorians. And so they engage in this, they fire rockets, they jetpack, they use all their gear. It's a really amazing fight scene. really well played out by both the actors and just great level of action. But Bo-Katan does arise victorious, and she is now the leader of these Mandalorians. At this scene, they do bring up again how she was the leader previously, and without the Darksaber, she really can't rule. And how could she rule if she doesn't even have the strength to take the saber from Din? Din brings up that back on Mandalore, he was disarmed of the saber and taken captive. Bo saved him and killed his captor with the Darksaber. That does follow true with the honor code of her still holding the saber and being the rightful ruler, and that's of course why I thought she had it from this time on. But she is given it by Mando, and she now is the ruler of these Mandalorians, wielding the Darksaber for the first time rightfully in her lifetime. And this is amazing. A great way to end this episode, again packed with a bunch of Easter eggs, but really heavy on the Mandalorian culture and just the world building of this Star Wars universe that we've been lacking for a little bit in these episodes. As we're gearing up towards the end of this season, I'm excited to see where things are finally going to go. Thanks for watching another episode of Binary Sunset Review. As always, I'm Mike. Your likes and your views are greatly appreciated. Have a great day out there. Stay safe, stay sane, and remember, the Force will be with you, always.
I'm just a simple man trying to make my way in the universe.